Welcome aboard to the Heavy Metal Truckers. We are your hosts. I am Pincushion, that is Frosty, and this is Doppler. And in today's video, we are going to be exploring the latest album from Eluveitie. Well, I'm just going to say the American way because reasons. Fuck, what's her name?
Anav. Anav?
Anv.
A&V, isn't it?
It's
Yeah.
Anu. It's Anu is how you pronounce it.
Oh, okay. There you
Okay. Yeah, okay, well, we're going to... Yeah, so that's the album we're doing.
I learned I learned pronunciations when I listened to this album.
Okay, well, that's great. So let's get started. So, I will let whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'll let Doppler go there first.
go. Alright. So, I first heard of Eluveitie probably 10 years ago. Something like that. Heard a couple songs here and there. Thought they were decent, but never really delved into them. So this is first album I've listened to all the way through. I've probably heard 6 or 7 songs up until this point besides this album. So I mean, I knew what their sound was, so I wasn't like going in completely blind or anything. But it allowed me to go in with pretty much completely open mind. For the most part, I was quite impressed with the album. I call them interludes because it's kind of what they were for me, or felt like to me, because they were kind of different from the rest of everything else on the album. They weren't actually called interludes on the album, but I kind of felt to me like they were. I loved every one of those. One of them was that I considered that was the title track. I forget the names of the other ones that were like that, but they were always the softer ones, and they were the more Celtic, folky style ones. Can't think of the chick's name, but to
Anna.
me, Anna. Those are the ones where she really shined for me. At least on the ones where she actually sang in those, or in one of them, I assume it was her speaking anyway. Now the heavier songs, I enjoyed those too. I thought both her and whoever the guy is that does the harsh vocalist.
I can't remember his name.
It's
Christoph-
Cragdall or
Oh, no.
Crigdall.
Yeah, one of
Somewhere
those.
I remember looking up his name and I cannot remember.
They to me are a band that is kind of similar to, say, in a way, a With Invitation or an Epica or even a Lacuna Coil, but they add that folk Celtic element to the music.
If you took
The other ones do.
If you took like Lacuna Coil or something like them and blended them with Corpiclani.
Yeah. And, because of that, I actually quite enjoyed the album. And like I said, weirdly, I enjoyed the softer songs on here because I felt like that's where you really felt that, Celtic, folky sound come.
Mm-hmm.
And there was one song, can't remember what song it is, son of a gun.
Explain it and I can tell you.
I'm trying to think how I was gonna describe it. But it gave me like, what the hell did it remind me of? See, now I'm drawing blanks.
You're fine.
I don't know. Maybe somebody else will mention it'll mention something and it'll remind me.
Probably.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I was quite impressed with the album. I thought it was very solid. It's an album I would buy. It's borderline, kind of like the Epica album. It's like it's on that fence for me.
Yeah.
It's like if I was walking store and I saw it on sale, I'd potentially snatch it up.
Mm-hmm.
For a score, I gave it a 7.75, which I think might be the same score I gave Epica's album, if I remember right.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I enjoyed the album.
Gotcha.
All right, Frosty, what you got?
Um, so I first heard of Eluveitie back in, I think it was 2017. The person I was dating at the time had shown me them, and I think at that point I probably ended up listening about 6 to 8 of their songs. So I'm kind of sitting in the same boat with you, Doppler, in that regard. Um, they'll occasionally pop up on my shuffle playlist on you know when I'm listening to my music and everything. So like I'll occasionally hear some of the older stuff and all that. This album I thoroughly enjoyed. I definitely thoroughly enjoyed. The the fun parts about this album, I'm gonna have to agree again, is the Celtic stuff, the slower stuff. For me, I mean, I do like the heavier songs on the album. However, um, without the what did you call them? Interludes, the softer
That felt like to
parts and
me.
all that, and in
Yeah.
between. Yeah, I mean, it gave it like a flow to the full album, and it was just absolutely amazingly done. I definitely love the title track.
Hmm.
Definitely love that one. Um, I knew. I don't know what it was. It was like Celtic, ethereal, just beautiful. Probably the best way I could describe that one. Definitely enjoyed it. I mean, I definitely enjoy the heavier songs, the heavier tracks, and all that. However, like it was the softer pieces on the album that really took effect. Because, I mean, how often do you get like folk music mixed with metal, and then on top of that, like a Celtic folk metal, and it's fantastic.
You sir need to
Absolutely
listen to
enjoyed it.
Corpiclani.
Yeah, Coral Colony. What's that? There's a German band that does it too. They even use a hurdy-gurdy.
Yeah, I can't think, but there's more
Well,
folk.
Eluveitie uses a
Mortis or
hurdy-gurdy as
something like
well.
that.
Oh, I know, but like, there's more than you
Yeah.
realize that there are
Oh yeah,
actually out
there's
there.
even Nightwish will mix in folky
Oh, yeah.
elements.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what it is about it. I really enjoy the folky vibe when it comes to it.
God, we need to show you
But
Corpiclani.
I mean, you probably have to show me a lot more than just that. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I
Is
think
that
my favorite
German
track
band
on the
called?
album, even though I enjoyed the title track a lot, I think my favorite song on the album was probably the Prodigal Ones. It had like a mixture of that like folk vibe versus Celtic versus heavier instrumentals and all that, and I don't know, it was just fantastic. I mean, as far as a rating would be concerned, I would probably give this. I'm gonna give it a solid 8. Would be my answer.
Solvitatio Mortis or something like that. That's the German band I was thinking. But anywho,
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
So, whenever, wait, let me start off this. I discovered Eluveitie.
did he give his score? I can't remember.
Yeah, he
8.
8. Yeah.
8. Okay. All right.
Yep. Solid 8.
Yeah. I discovered Eluveitie whenever this was many years ago, whenever,
Kitty.
yep, that is Wolfie. Probably 2013, maybe? Because at the time I've been a huge fan of, Omnia, the pagan folk group. Which, for those of you that have never heard of Omnia, I
Yeah.
highly recommend you guys look into them. They kind of went on a hiatus and they're kind of slowly coming back, but not really. It's like a little weird moment, or weird ordeal. But whenever I was looking, I'm like, okay, well, I love Omni, I love their folk aspect. What are there any groups that are like putting metal into this? And I found a playlist, started went through some stuff, and I don't remember what I was doing, probably cleaning my room at the time. And then all of a sudden, Eluveitie came on, and it was Call the Mountains, and I was awestruck by it
One of my
because
favorites.
it was, words cannot describe how incredible that track is, and on it was just beyond amazing on it. So I got more into their discography, grew to very much enjoy them, even though they've had a lot of lineup changes. But yeah, I've really enjoyed them over the years, and probably you could say they're borderline my favorite folk group, but they still have some aspects where I would probably go to someone else. But on this album, whenever I first listened to it, I heard Emerge. I'm like, wow, this is very well done. And then all of a sudden, Noise came on, and I'm like, okay, interesting. And then the folk came in, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? It was completely discombobulated. It was completely disorganized. They went way too chaotic with the instruments. They went way too chaotic with the metal and tried to introduce the folk, and it was completely disorganized, for my opinion. There was too much going on, and it was just horrible to me. And then whenever
What song was that?
Ternoias is the second track on the album.
Oh.
And then whenever, I think her name is Fabienne or something of the sort, she started singing, and I'm like, okay, sounds more like metalcore, but okay, we're gonna go along with it. And then at the end, oh my god, I got so annoyed because she went to a nice high vocal, and then all of a sudden she had that squeak at the end, and I'm like, I hate this. I absolutely hate this. Like, that could have been done differently to where it just ended on the high and then just left. But no, I don't know if it was that she had difficulty with it, or if they thought that actually sounded good, or I don't know. Did not like it. And I'm like, oh great, we're gonna have another modern metal group, thinking that the masses are gonna love this, and I'm not gonna enjoy it. The Prodigal Ones came on, and I'm like, okay, it's getting a little better. The folk came in, and I'm like, okay, so it's not too bad. And then it's just, it was just a little bit of folk, and it wasn't really there. It was more so just like maybe a synthesized piano or something. And I'm like, this album is terrible so far. I don't like this. Out of what I know of their discography and what they can do, this is not good. And so I'm like, okay, let me just power through this. And then Anu came on. I'm a big fan of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Mind you, excluding the Assassin's Creed portion of it. If it had just been Valhalla, fantastic game. But a lot of the vocals and soundtracks of that game sounded like this, and I was like, okay, a good track. What the hell is going on? I'm confused at this point. I knew it was amazing, and then they went into Premonition, and I'm like, whoa, here's the Eluveitie I know. And then the fucking instruments came in, and I'm like, They came in like Beetlejuice going, it's showtime. And they just fucking annihilated the whole mindset that I had of how this album was going to be. And they got back into their groove, and it was phenomenal. Awen, I'm going to be doing a cover of that once I figure it out. Because the beginning of that, no ma'am, you are... No. Sorry, I was just trying to nibble on cable. The groove that had was beyond words. And I just absolutely loved it. And then the rest of the album it had your folk aspects, and I wrote notes on this, and let me get back to it so I can actually, I'm not going to go full into it like I've been trying not to, but let me at least, so, Anamkara, I loved the acoustic beginning at the beginning, and that was in the background, and then this was a spoken word that sounded like it was a poem, or it was a poem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it did. It reminded me a lot of Nightwish's spoken word.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And then, like, the chanting that was in the background was absolutely amazing. The harvest, absolutely incredible. I did think that the lead was placed quite early, but it was interesting and well done. I was not expecting it, but it worked. Now, they did have a bit of a breakdown in this one that I thought was pretty interesting, because you didn't, it might have been around the bridge to pretty much to the end, but it wasn't entirely, they didn't set anything up to where you would expect that. It just kind of flowed into it, which I love whenever a group can do that and do it well. Memories of Innocence. That was the instrumental piece on here, and this one felt like I was at a pagan festival with a bunch of people with their instruments, and they're just like, let's have a jam session. And that's what it was, and it was amazing.
That might have been the song I was thinking about.
Yeah.
Probably.
All is One. Holy shit. The harp and the violin opening was incredible. And then the flutes. My God, the flutes. The flutes, along with the atmospheric ambience that it had, was impeccable. This is the one I think that has some slightly distorted spoken word, but it had some, like, it had a section where it was just drum and bass going, and I love that kind of thing whenever they're having almost like a breakdown, but not a breakdown. It's just a drum and bass going, and they're just going off one another. I love that kind of thing. And this, honestly, to me, was the ballad of the album. It was both heavy instrumentally and lyrically. It was intense. Amon of the Crescent Moon, this was another soft opening. It hit absolutely hard whenever it came to the other instrumentals coming in. This is the one where they introduced the Hardy Guardian. I fucking loved it. I don't know if you guys heard this. At the end, after the breakdown, there was dueling violins.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I might have noticed at the time, but I don't.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head right now.
Yeah, that was incredible. The Prophecy, this was a spoken word with the atmospheric beginning. They just had some female vocal chanting that I absolutely loved. It even ended kind of like the same way, but instrumentally everything was consistent, with the exception of the first of those two tracks, Paranoias and The Prodigal Ones. To me, actually, the first three tracks they could have left off the album, and this would have been a 9.5 for me. However, because the album to me did not start until Anew. I feel like they put some stuff in here because even though this is like 12 or 14 tracks of an album, it was only 40 minutes long.
12, yeah.
Yeah, 12 tracks. It was only 40 minutes long, very short tracks, which I enjoy, just get straight to the point. However, I would not have hated it if they had taken out the first three tracks. And for that, I gotta rate this an 8.5. Like, the
You're still the highest score of anybody.
Terranoias, I know, but
you had more problems than we.
We did, and you gave it a higher score.
Because
Funny.
here's the funny thing. At the end of this album, I was driving. It was difficult for me to drive because I couldn't see through my tears. I was blown away. Now, of course, even though I was blown away, the first three tracks, or those two tracks in particular, just ruined it for me. Just, like, ruined what it could have potentially been, as in close to perfection. Everything else was top-notch. But yeah, 8.5. Would I buy this album? I think I could. And then I'd figure out a way to go, and then once I put it on my phone, I'd just take off the first three tracks. Because, again, like, yes, I would buy this album even though the first three tracks I didn't care for, but that doesn't exclude the rest of everything that took me away and was beyond phenomenal.
So we got an 8.5, an 8, and a 7.75. It's all pretty close together.
All right, well, we do hope you guys enjoyed our review of Eluveities Anu, or for those in the Freedom States, or for those in the Freedom States, Eluveitie Anv.
Yeah.
All right,
A
guys.
little bit of French there.
It did kind of. Yeah.
Well, we got the French Quarters down in Louisiana, so they're part of the Freedom States, so we'll go with that. Notice, bear in mind, people, I'm using Freedom States very sarcastically. Please understand that. But anyways, until next time, guys, keep rolling heavy.